Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, my name's Amanda. In today's What's for Dinner video, we've got our top family favorites from the last several months worth of videos that I've done. So I'm kind of highlighting the ones we really enjoyed the best. There were a few others too. I would have loved to include this, but it was getting long, so I wanted to share it with y'all. I'd love it if you haven't already to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I do all kinds of food recipes, so I'd love to have you as part of my YouTube family. But let's go ahead and get into these quick and easy dinner ideas. First, we're going to start with chicken and dumplings. That's a favorite for every Southerner, I think, especially. And I'm sure even if you're not Southern and you've ever had chicken and dumplings, it's just so good. So the recipe actually called for like a hen, like a whole chicken. I actually just used 4 chicken breasts, and that worked just fine for us. Now I'm adding just some salt and pepper in here. I've got the 3 cloves of garlic. I'm just going to boil this for a couple of hours. Just going to create a broth, and then also, as well as cooking the chicken, I'm just going to remove that and shred all that chicken up. Now also with the broth, I actually like to strain my broth just to make sure that there's no bits of bone or anything like that that get kind of broken off from the chicken, because when you're cooking it for a couple hours like that, it does kind of break down a little bit more. Also, I forgot to get footage of this, but as I was cooking it, I did skim the impurities that rose to the top, and that also helped skim off a lot of the extra grease from the fat from the chicken too. So that was really handy as well. So I encourage you to do that as well. And I'm just picking this meat off and getting it ready. I actually ended up with quite a bit more than I needed for this recipe, so I went ahead and saved the rest of it for another use. So that was really handy too, to have some extra chicken cooked up. So here's my strained broth, and now we're going to get ready to make these dumplings. So I've got 3 cups of all-purpose flour, or I'm sorry, self-rising flour in that bowl, and I'm just adding a cup of water and an egg to it. I have made dumplings maybe once or twice before, and I've actually never made the dumplings this way with the egg in it, so this was a new way to try out for me for sure. And you're just going to get it, to come together until you can get it to where you can kind of start kneading it a little. And of course, you always, want to make sure you don't overwork your dough, but you're going to put a little flour down and then just kind of get that dough out there and knead it just a little bit to get it to come fully together, and work in any little extra flour that you might need. And then we're going to roll it out. Now, I have to say again, I've mentioned it before, I love that dough whisk. I've seen a few different YouTubers use that, and so I thought, oh, I'm going to try me one of those. It looked really handy, and it is really awesome. I love that thing. And once I get this kind of, worked in to where it's ready to roll out, I'm actually going to take my Pampered Chef roller tool. I don't remember what it's called, but I love that thing too. It's really handy. I like that it's dishwasher safe, because rolling pins usually are wood and you can't really plop them in the dishwasher. So I really like that you can just put that in the dishwasher too. So I'm going to get this rolled out. I like thin dumplings. How about y'all? If y'all had dumplings, do you like the thin ones? Do you like the thick ones? Do you like drop dumplings? And do you make them like, how do you normally like your dumplings? I like the really thin ones. I love Cracker Barrel's dumplings. Oh my gosh, they're like my favorite. And so I was trying to get these kind of thinner so I could maybe get them kind of like Cracker Barrels. Now, I will have to say every now and then I'll get really big chunks like a Cracker Barrel or something like that. But mostly they're, when they're nice and fresh, especially, they're nice and thin. And I'm just taking a little spatula here and cutting these. I thought about using, if you have maybe like a butcher block countertop or something where you could do more on, a pizza cutter would be a great tool to use for this. It would make it so easy. But I have a texture on my countertop, and I didn't know whether that might mess it up, so I thought I'd use the spatula instead. Now, as I do this, I am kind of, dusting a little flour just so they don't stick together. I'm kind of making me a little pile of dumplings over there. And so make sure you do that as you roll out, cut out these dumplings so that they don't start sticking together. Plus, that flour actually will help a little bit on thickening up the dumpling, like the liquid in the dumplings too. So, and that kind of helps a little to have that extra flour. I think I know that I watch Collard Valley Cooks, and I've watched her make dumplings before, and I think she a lot of times even takes a little flour at the end and kind of tosses them in it and stuff. So you could definitely do that as well. So I've brought my chicken broth back to a boil, and I'm just going to drop all these in. I got a little scared. The pot got kind of full, so I didn't drop them all in. I will tell you, it was absolutely fine. It would have been completely fine to drop them all in. Now I wished I would have, because we kind of didn't end up having as many dumplings as I would have liked. But, and I'm just adding a little bit of that chicken bouillon here to kind of flavor it, since I left the salt out of the additional salt out of the dumplings, so I thought that might taste good and kind of enhance the chicken broth flavor. And I've just got my chicken going in here, and now this is where you're going to kind of watch it for thickness. And of course, some people like their dumplings really soupy. Some people like them a lot more thicker. So I've got some cream going in there. That's going to help thicken it up as well. And then mine still wasn't quite thick enough, so I went ahead and made like a cornstarch slurry. And just a little bit of cornstarch and some of the cooking liquid. Mixed that together, and that helped. But I probably could have took it even a little more. I didn't want to get it too thick, so I was kind of careful about that, because I haven't, like I said, I'm not really an expert at making dumplings, so this was kind of maybe my third attempt. So these were amazing. They tasted so good. The dumplings were like, had this like chewiness to them that were so delicious. I will definitely be making this again. So next I have Crockpot Sesame Chicken. So I'm just taking 3 chicken breasts and I'm dicing them up into bite-sized pieces. Now, the recipe actually calls for 4 chicken breasts, but I only had 3 in the package I had, so I just went ahead and made it do, and that was fine. Next, this was so good, though, that I will say that next time I'm probably just going to double the whole recipe, because it was amazing. I could not believe how good it was. I really wasn't expecting that. So while I'm finishing up cutting this chicken, I do want to say I'm sorry for being a little absent on YouTube. I had meant to get a video out quite a bit before now, and I try to post every single week. Unfortunately, I hurt my knee about a little over a week ago, and I have been hobbling around, and it's been very difficult to cook or film. So I hope you enjoy this one. I kind of try to pick easy meals so I wasn't on my leg quite as much as I usually am, and then that way I can kind of let my knee heal, and it's doing so much better. Still not 100%, but it's almost there. So but this, like I said, this meal, I cannot believe how good it was. Like, and you could use, I think, boneless, skinless chicken thighs, if you wanted to use that as well. That actually might hold up a little better in the crock pot too, just because that sometimes it's easy to overcook chicken breasts in the crock pot, or any way of cooking actually. So in this bowl, I'm making the sauce to go over the chicken. I've got the recipe calls for a cup of soy sauce. I used half beef broth and half soy sauce so that I could cut the sodium down. There's also rice wine vinegar, sesame oil, honey, brown sugar, red pepper flakes, and garlic powder. So we're just going to add all these ingredients in and get this all whisked up. Now I will say I used just a smidgen less brown sugar and a smidgen less red pepper flakes than the recipe called for, just because I didn't want it to be too spicy, and I also didn't want it to be too sweet. But I used pretty close to the amounts. I think you could definitely play with that a little bit and do how you like for that. So we're just going to get that all good and dissolved. Make sure that brown sugar gets mixed in well. And then we're going to pour that over the chicken in the crock pot. And it's going to actually cook, well, the instructions said to cook on low for 2 to 3 hours, or until chicken is cooked, through. I went ahead and turned it on high because I was trying to get it done kind of quickly. And, I ended up I think probably maybe 2 hours is what I cooked it for. Now, I do feel like the chicken probably overcooked just a little. So I definitely would either try to cook it on low next time, or cut back a little of the time and check it earlier. So I'm just making some rice to go along with this. This rice, I did not get every step of making it since I was making a few different elements, but it's a super great recipe. Turns out fluffy every time. Definitely check that out. I have it in the description box below. And I'm also trying out this method of green beans that I found. Like, I wish I had the whole green beans, but I just had the cut ones. So I kind of did my own thing, but I'll link the recipe that I kind of went by in the description box. But I've just got olive oil, and you actually place these under the broiler. I'm trying to get them kind of like the green beans from the Chinese restaurants. Like, they have kind of that crispy, I don't know. They're so good. Like, I love those green beans. And so this recipe had you broil them. Now, it did have you make a sauce and stuff like that, and I didn't do that. I just went ahead, and once they were broiled, I actually sauteed them in a couple of tablespoons of butter. And I added some onion powder and garlic powder to it. Now you can feel free to add whatever seasonings you want, you know, salt, pepper, anything at all that you'd like to flavor them with. I just chose those because I knew I was going to have that sauce from the sesame chicken, and I didn't want to like overwhelm with too much flavor with that. But I've got this going here. I just kind of, I mean, they're already done really since they're broiled. I'm just kind of letting them, you know, get those flavors from the onion powder and the garlic powder and the butter and everything, and get it all good and mixed together. We really liked these green beans. They turned out really well. They did not turn out exactly like, you know, the Chinese restaurants, but they were really good. So this is the rice I'm talking about. So fluffy every time. It's like a perfect rice recipe, and it's so easy. It's just 1.5 cups of water for every 1 cup of basmati rice. Now, I think it's more about the method it does. So it's more about the way you cook this that makes it turn out so fluffy. So make sure to check out that recipe for sure. It's really good. So the recipe said if you want to thicken the sauce, go ahead and get just the chicken out separately. Leave the liquid behind. We're going to put that liquid in a pot and bring it to a boil. And then I'm going to thicken it with a cornstarch slurry. Now, I know some recipes have you thicken it in the crock pot, and that may definitely work. I have never tried that before because this is the first time I made anything like this. But if you've done that before and you know it works, then definitely go ahead and do that. But while we're on the topic of like Chinese food, Asian food, what is your favorite meal from a Chinese restaurant? Like whether it's a, you know, combination kind of some things, or, you know, just one dish that you really love, the thing that you absolutely crave when you want Chinese food. Let me know in the comments below. So I've got that sauce done, and I've just poured it over the chicken, and I'm just really so impressed with this recipe. My daughter, she kept saying that this was one of the best things I've ever made. Everybody enjoyed it. It was so very good. I wished I'd had some egg rolls and cream cheese wontons. That would have made it perfect because I love those too. But I highly recommend you, if you only make one recipe out of this video, please make this. It is so very good. Next up, we have chicken enchilada soup. And now this is a green enchilada versus a red enchilada. So it's very different than any of the soups I've kind of had along these lines. So now I'm just cutting up some mushrooms. For the most part, if they're big enough, I quartered them. And then if some of them were a little extra big, I cut them into about 6 pieces. So I'm kind of chunking them, not really making like slices or a fine dice or anything like that. But, you know, however you like them, will be fine. And honestly, if you're not a mushroom fan, you could definitely leave this out of this recipe too. I feel like this recipe is very flexible to add or subtract whatever you would prefer. So I've got some chicken breast I actually cooked another night. I just took chicken breasts, rubbed them with olive oil, and covered them in a garlic herb seasoning, and then baked them at 375. I've actually made this soup 2 or 3 times before, and I used raw chicken, and that's what you'll see in my recipe. But honestly, this worked so well, I'll probably just use cooked chicken from here on out anytime I make this. And we really like this. That's why I've already made it 3 or 4 times. So once I get that cut up, I'm actually going to start dicing up a jalapeno. Now, the jalapeno, again, if you don't like spicy, you could leave that out. I don't like a whole lot of spice. I do have to say that this night that I made this actually was a little spicier than usual. I think it was the choice of salsa verde that I used. So you definitely can eliminate the peppers to eliminate spice. Make sure you use a mild, salsa for it. You can definitely make whatever changes you need to make, because this soup, it just has so much flavor. I can't recommend it enough for sure. So I've got some butter and oil going in there. We're just going to saute our onions just until they get kind of translucent. Once they do, we're going to actually add in our mushrooms and let them cook for just a minute or 2. You're just going to kind of want them to start cooking because they're going to cook in the soup too. Then you're going to add your minced garlic. You can obviously use fresh here if you'd like to. I just a lot of times use that, the little jarred kind. And now you're going to add your jalapeno. I did not add that entire jalapeno. I did add most of it. So again, just personal preference on that, however much you like to use. I've got a quart of chicken broth going in there, and then I'm adding my diced chicken breast as well. And I didn't use quite all that either. I was trying to kind of eyeball it to see, I didn't want to get it over full of chicken. So, and I've got the salsa verde going in there, and basically Once you get all these spices in there, you're going to just let it come to a boil and simmer for just a little bit. Now I have all those spices in the recipe. I've got it's a decent sized list of them, but don't be intimidated by that because it's absolutely amazing. So I also added some chickpeas, and after it had cooked for a little bit, I'm adding some corn and some baby spinach. And then you're going to let that cook a little bit longer. I actually realized I forgot my cilantro. You usually add the cilantro at this point too. So you'll see me add that in just a minute. There it goes. And so that's okay if you did. I mean, I did it just right before and stirred it a little bit. And it actually kind of added a little of that greenness, more fresh green to it. So it definitely didn't hurt anything. I cannot tell you how good this soup was. It is so good and it's really healthy. There's lots of good nutritious food in here. Definitely recommend it so much. If you try it, please let me know because we love it so much. So I'd love to know if you do too. Also, feel free to add any toppings you'd like to it, but I like it just the way it is. Next up, we have chicken noodle casserole. Now, this was a recipe I found from the Cozy Cook, and I have to say, I follow her on Instagram, and she always has things that look so good. So I decided to make this because I had some stuff on hand that I needed to use up, and this would be a good use of it. And it was super easy. My goodness, like you could not get any easier. But I've just got cream of chicken soup in that bowl, some milk and sour cream, and then some shredded cheese. I did hand shred this. I feel like it turns out better a lot of times with melting wise when you do that. And I'm just going to stir this up. Now her recipe called for you to cook the chicken. I already had cooked chicken on hand, so I used about 2 cups of cooked chicken to this. This is part of what made it go by so quick. So great use of leftover chicken. And then I've got some cut up broccoli florets, and I added that all together and got it mixed in well. And then I've got some, it called for rotini, but I didn't have any rotini, so I used, I want to say it's kind of like cavatappi, but I want to say it's called something else, but it's closest to cavatappi. And I love those noodles, like way better even than like macaroni noodles. And so I just had those cooked and added that to this mixture. And as you can see, everything's nice and steamy from the noodles that were freshly cooked. So I'm just going to dish this out in a pan. Now, it said to cover it with a little bit of cheese. I'll be honest, I kind of missed that in the instructions. I'm horrible about that. And so I went ahead and baked it for 20 minutes first and then pulled it out. And it looked so good, I wanted to taste it since it was new and kind of see what it tasted like. And it tasted so good and cheesy that I honestly didn't feel like it needed the extra cheese on top. So, but after we started eating it, my daughter and I both said, ooh, it would be good with like some Ritz crackers on top. I believe she called for fried onions. I'm not a huge fan of those, but like Ritz crackers with butter or panko with butter or something like that would be so good. Guys, you've got to make this recipe. It's delicious. So we're starting with the fajitas, and I'm just going to slice up some onions and also some peppers. I don't know about you, but fajitas are one of my most favorite things to order at a Mexican restaurant. I really love this recipe. It's so good. It's so easy. And my family just enjoys it every time I make it. So do you like Mexican food? And if you do, what's your favorite dish you like to order at Mexican restaurants? Have you made any at home that you kind of gotten close to what you enjoy at the restaurant? One thing I still would like to copy exactly is the white cheese dip. I always love that at Mexican restaurants, and I've tried some of the ones that are refrigerated and things like that, but none of them ever quite taste the same. So this pepper here gave me some trouble. It was such an odd shaped pepper, and it had a few areas that I had to cut out of it. Now I will say you can use any color peppers you like. I always tend to use yellow and orange. I'm not a huge red bell pepper fan, and sometimes I like green for different things, so I just kind of vary it. Sometimes I do throw in green peppers as well. So whatever kind of peppers that you like would be great in this. It all just tastes so good together with the onions and peppers and chicken. So now I'm just cutting up 3 chicken breasts. I actually probably should have made it a little extra this night, but I actually split the chicken between a couple of different things. So you can just use however much chicken you feel like, will feed your family best. So in this bowl, I have the peppers and onions. I'm just drizzling some oil on there and some garlic powder. I've got some Mexican oregano starting to be put in there in just a minute. Now, I will say I don't measure any of these. I just kind of eyeball it, and I feel like that works fine. You don't really have to measure. It's just kind of what you like. And so I'm also going to add some chili powder. I also added in some Trader Joe's chili lime seasoning. That I've really been trying to find ways to use that, and I've enjoyed that in these fajitas. I'm also going to add some cumin and some onion powder. And you can always add other seasonings you might enjoy. So if there's a seasoning that you like, I actually had fajita seasoning that I'm going to use a little bit in the fajita meat, but unfortunately that was on my last little bit of that, so I didn't put it in the veggies. But yeah, if you've got fajita seasoning, you could add that in here. Any kind of those, you know, more Mexican-y food type seasonings you can add into this. So I'm just kind of squishing this around in the bowl, getting it all mixed up together so that everything gets coated with the oil and coated with the seasonings. And I've got a cast iron skillet here on medium heat, and I'm pouring a little bit of oil in there so I can saute these veggies up and get them nice and, you know, kind of that toasted on them that really just tastes so good with fajitas. So I'm just stirring these around in the pan, and then I'm going to kind of break up some of the onions. They tend to like try to stick together, so I just try to break those apart a little bit, and it just takes a little bit to kind of get those to your liking. If you like them a little more done, let them go a little longer. I still like mine a little crisp, so I try not to get them too overly done. We're now putting those cut up chicken breasts into the skillet, and I'm going to actually season those in the pan. I have marinated my chicken before, but I'll be honest with you, one time I didn't have time and we did it this way, and all of us agreed that the flavors were better when I just sprinkled it directly on the chicken. So that's what we did here. On the chicken is the Trader Joe's chili lime seasoning blend again, garlic powder, Mexican oregano, fajita seasoning, chili powder, cumin seed, and onion powder. And I'll write all these down in the description box below so that you'll have a list of them, and you can kind of go by those if you want to recreate this at home. I really feel like this is not so much of a recipe, it's more of just a method I do with it. I will have the Mexican rice that is an actual recipe, and that will be something that's really good too to serve with this. But I'm just getting this all good with that seasoning. Again, remember, I don't really salt a lot of my stuff heavily, so I did not add salt to this. So please remember to make sure you add salt to yours if you'd like that. We find that it has enough flavor with all of the seasonings and, you know, the other things we serve with it that make it flavorful enough. But I know that a lot of people might want to add salt to that. So just a reminder, just in case. And so once I get these coated with the seasoning, I'm just going to kind of stir them around, let them start browning on all sides, and get them good and kind of toasty there. Now here I'm actually getting close to covering it with foil. I actually didn't show this part, but I'm going to just cover it with foil to let it kind of finish cooking, to make sure all of the chicken gets done everywhere. I feel like it's hard to always get every little bit done, so I like to do that. And then I'm just once the chicken got done, I'm mixing the veggies back into it, stirring that well and incorporating everything together. And then I'm going to actually just cover that and let it stay warm while I finish up the other elements of our meal. So there we kind of have the finished product. It looks so delicious. This is one of my favorite meals ever. So good. So now we're starting the Mexican rice. You're just going to put about 3 tablespoons or so of oil in a sauce pot. You're going to bring that up to heat over medium heat. Once it is heated, you need to add 2 cups of rice to it, and just kind of stir that around to get it good and coated with the oil. Now I use either jasmine or basmati rice usually. You can use whatever kind works best for you. That's just what we typically have on hand most of the time, and those seem to work well for us. You're going to keep kind of stirring this. Don't let it burn. Just keep an eye on it. And once it gets kind of toasty, you're going to start adding some seasonings in there. I've got garlic powder going in there, Mexican oregano, a little bit of onion salt, onion powder, cumin, tomato powder, and dried onions. My original recipe does not call for the tomato powder or the dried onions or the onion salt. But we like to add in a few different things sometimes, and this is just what we did this night, and it turned out really well. The tomato powder I have is actually new, so I wanted to kind of try it and see how it worked in this, and we really were happy with how it turned out. So once you get all these seasonings in there, you're going to just kind of keep stirring it around, letting it continue to brown a little until it gets good and toasted. You're kind of toasting up those spices to enhance that flavor in there as well. Once it gets to, where you see some golden bits of rice, you're going to actually add in 3 1/4 cups of chicken broth or stock. I'm sure you could use water here too, but ultimately I feel like that chicken broth or chicken stock gives it a lot more flavor. Now I will say, when you pour that in, this is so hot to be careful. It will try to splash back on you. So just be mindful of that when you're adding the chicken broth. You could even remove it from the heat for a moment while you do that. That might help as well. I usually just go ahead and pour it in there and it works out fine, but it does bubble up quite a bit. Once you've added your chicken broth or stock, you're going to add 8 ounces of tomato sauce, and that's going to go in here, and then you're going to make sure you scrape all those rice bits that are up there down into the liquid so they can all cook good and evenly. You're going to actually bring this to a boil and make sure to cover it either with some foil tightly wrapped around the top, which is what I did because I don't have a lid for this pot, or with a tight fitting lid. You're going to turn the heat all the way down to low, and you're going to let it kind of simmer there for about 20 minutes. Usually mine's done by then. You can always kind of check it and see how it's going at 20 minutes. If it seems like it needs a little longer, you can let it go just a couple more minutes. Now I've got just some canned black beans on the back part of the stove here. We like to eat that with our fajitas as well. We don't really add anything to those. Now the rice is all done. It's fluffy. It's so flavorful. We absolutely love this rice. It's the closest thing I've ever had to actual Mexican rice from a restaurant. It really is delicious. Leftovers are good. It's just something my kids love to eat all the time. I think they would eat it every day sometimes if I would make it every day. But they really enjoy it. So now we're going to make some guacamole. Everybody I know makes this differently. We keep ours pretty simple. I've got, I believe it was like 4 avocados in there, and I've got a couple of limes. I use a little garlic salt in ours and the lime juice, and that's it. We just kind of taste it as we go to see where the seasonings are, what we need. Do we need a little more lime? Do we need a little more garlic salt? So I don't really measure anything on this. I just completely go by taste. And it always turns out well. Usually I've never gotten anything too much in it. I just kind of am conservative and then taste a little and kind of see where it goes. And basically you just need to get all the lime juice in there. And of course that's going to help it from browning. But I'm also going to give you another tip here in a minute that will help your guacamole to stay nice, bright and green even after it's sat over in the refrigerator overnight. Once I get this juice all in there, I'm just going to start mashing all these up and getting it to the consistency we like. We like it pretty smooth, so I don't leave large chunks or anything in there. But just do what you like. Some people like it a little more chunky. Some people add tomato, cilantro. You can do so many things. Red onion, whatever you'd like to add to it. Just make it how you like it. Guacamole is good no matter what. So it's one of those things that we really enjoy. So I'm just placing it in my plasticware here. And once I get it all in here, I'm actually going to place one of the avocado pits that I used from the avocados and place it in there and then cover it a little with the guacamole. I was amazed. This really keeps it nice and green. It's the difference of night and day between not having that in there and having it in there. It was just such a neat trick. I was shocked it worked. So I highly recommend you try that because it does tend to turn brown easily. So this is our finished plate. This was my plate actually. This meal was amazing. We love this meal. It's one of our favorite meals. I highly recommend you make it. I think you really will enjoy it. So next up we have chicken hashbrown casserole. And guys, let me just tell you, if you only make one thing out of this video, please make this. This was unreal amazing. So very good. So I've just got some shredded cheese in that bowl, and then I'm adding a can of cream of chicken. I always use the healthy request because it's a little bit better for you than the regular kind. You could obviously make homemade as well. We're adding some sour cream in here, and they actually called for milk, and for whatever reason I completely left it out, but it was fine. So if you happen to not have any milk on hand or something like that, you will be okay, because this just turned out perfect. And I just add a little bit of pepper in there. You could also add salt if you want to, but I feel with the cheese and the cream of chicken, there's plenty of salt. So that's what works for us. Now I've just got some leftover chicken here that I've shredded and adding to this. So this is a great use of leftovers too. You got some leftover chicken in the fridge, throw this together, and you've got a whole nother completely new meal to use for chicken. And we're just going to get this all mixed together. We're going to next add in our hash browns and get that all mixed. Now I will give you a tip on the hash browns. Always make sure you try to at least partially thaw them. Mine was kind of partially thawed. That'll really help you be able to combine them much better. I would recommend, going ahead and just thaw them in the fridge for a little while, or if you want to, you can pop them in the microwave too, and that makes really quick work of thawing them too. So whichever works best for you, but if they're completely frozen, it makes this a whole lot more difficult. So now that it's all good and mixed up, we're just going to be placing it in the pan. Just make sure you spread it out and get it all good and even as much as you can. And we're going to get to work on that cornflake topping here in just a moment. That's what really, I've made Hashbrown Casserole. I actually have that on my channel as well. And this is probably pretty close to the same recipe, a little different maybe, except you're adding the chicken and the cornflakes on top. But oh my word, the addition of those cornflakes made such a huge difference. And the chicken too, it made it more of a main dish rather than a side dish. But oh my goodness, like I loved that crunch. The only thing that's unfortunate is when you have leftovers, it doesn't quite crunch, anymore if you heat it in the microwave. If you could heat it in the oven though, and it would work fine. So I just combined some cornflakes along with some butter together, super simple. Melted butter, of course, and then we're going to spread that over there. I actually went a little heavier on the cornflakes. I wanted to make sure I had a good topping on there, and that worked really well. I didn't go much over. I think it called for a couple of cups, and I went a little bit over that. So you're just going to bake this in a 400-degree oven for about an hour or until it's good and hot and bubbly. And I'm getting started on our side dish. Y'all have seen me probably make this before, but we love green beans, and I love fixing them this way. I've just got some butter and olive oil. Then I'm just adding some pepper, garlic, onion powder. I believe I added, a little Old Bay this night. I kind of change it up sometimes, but I pretty much always use, onion powder, garlic powder, pepper usually, that type of thing. And then I do add just a little bit of water to it just so it doesn't burn. It kind of helps steam them a little bit, but not enough to where it like waterlogs them, because I like them to actually get kind of a little like charred. It's kind of hard to explain, but you'll probably see some here in a little bit. I also added some minced garlic too. So I'm just going to cover those, and I just keep coming back to them every so often and, stir them and kind of check on them and that type of thing. And then, it really takes no time for them to get done. So this is our casserole out of the oven. Like I said, guys, look at that crispy, crunchy cornflake topping. It is so good. I cannot wait to make this again. I wish I had a piece right now. It was, please try this. It's so good. So here it is on the plate and you can see the green beans kind of have a little bit of that char. I just think that it tastes really good when it gets a little bit of that on there. And then, of course, our chicken hash brown casserole, delicious for sure. So first we have the 10-minute turkey and chicken burgers. So I'm just going to actually make my side right now, which is some veggies that I'm chopping up. I'm going to roast in the oven. While I'm chopping these up, I'm actually going to tell you a little bit about the cookbooks I've chosen. So I actually chose 3 cookbooks to use in these videos today. They are the Instant Loss cookbooks by Brittany Williams. I'm not sure if any of y'all have ever heard of her, but she is a big proponent of using the Instant Pot. Her recipes are not just Instant Pot recipes though, because the ones I've chosen are actually I've either adapted for the stove or what have you, and or she has some other options like where you can bake things like that. She's got baked goods in there too. So it's all about healthy eating, which is a great thing for the new year for sure. Definitely a good time to refocus after all those indulgent holiday meals. And so this was actually the first time I've tried any of her recipes. I'm in her Facebook group and everybody always raves about them, and so I was really excited to get to try some of these. So that's a little bit about the cookbook. I'll have that link below as well. So with these veggies, I've actually just got some squash, zucchini, red onion, and I've sprinkled some olive oil over it, and I'm going to sprinkle some of this Tuscan garlic seasoning. And I just got that at Sam's. You can get it there. And it's amazing, like so yummy. We put it on lots of different stuff. And so I'm just going to spread it out on my sheet pan. I baked this at 400 degrees. I believe it was for about 15 to 20 minutes or so, just until it gets done to your liking. And, you know, it's really personal preference on how done everybody likes their vegetables. So now we're going to start in on all the things that go into the turkey burgers to make them nice and flavorful. So I've got some green onions I'm going to chop up, and that's going to go in there. The recipe actually calls for a ½ cup of chopped green onions or chives. You can use either one. Now, I had a bad experience with turkey in the past, so what I decided to do after kind of consulting her Facebook group and getting some opinions on things, since I had that bad memory of ground turkey, I wanted to see if they had any suggestions. So some suggested I try ground chicken. So I actually, on this recipe, I did half ground turkey breast, half ground chicken, so I could compare and see which one I liked the best. So I'm just chopping up this spinach here. That's going to go in there as well. That's a ½ cup that we'll need for that. Then we'll also add in my seasoning. So that's going to be just some salt, pepper, dried minced onion, and really whatever you like. You could add all kinds of stuff in here, you know, garlic powder, onion powder, whatever you like. And then I'm adding 1 egg, as well as a ½ cup of old-fashioned rolled oats. So this is just the regular oats, not like the quick cooking kind. Now my spinach and onions are going in here, and I'm just going to mix this well. I always like to wear gloves when I handle raw meat because I'm just not a big fan. So that's why you see me wearing gloves. But once this gets kind of brought together, we'll start pattying it out and make our burgers. Now, if I remember right, this was the ground turkey breast, and then I do the ground chicken next. I ended up getting 5 out of each pound of meat. The recipe mentions, you know, you can form it into 6 or 8, you know, depending on how big the patties were. This is what, you know, ended up happening for me, was the 5. But again, that's going to be personal kind of, you know, preference on how, you know, large or small you want the patties. So definitely you can kind of adjust that and get more if you need to. So this is actually the ground chicken, and I've got the exact same ingredients going in here. And that's just going to, again, get mixed well and make those patties out. So I like getting all of them ready to go. And then that way, once I start cooking them, I can just keep going in a, you know, almost like an assembly line of, you know, putting one batch into the skillet and, you know, getting that cooked, and then the next batch and so on like that. So it makes it very handy. And this would also be easy if you wanted to prep ahead. You could go ahead and get these done, and then, you know, cover them up and put them in the refrigerator, and then you could just pull them out when you're ready to cook them the next day or that later that day. So that would be very handy as well. Save you a little time for dinner for sure. So now we're going to move on to cooking these burgers. In a skillet over medium heat, you're going to add 3 tablespoons of olive oil, and then we're going to brown the patties on that first side for 5 minutes. Now, I have to say, I was kind of concerned with this being turkey and chicken and all that. They're just making sure it was done. So I love what she tells you to do on, you know, to help kind of cook these all over. And that is, once you flip them, you cook them for an additional 3 minutes, but you cover it. So that really helped. I thought, well, will it brown on both sides like that? And it actually did. That worked perfect. I actually might try that with my hamburgers, because sometimes I like to make sure they're done, any kind of ground meat like that. So in another pot, I've added some chicken broth to get another side going. That's going to be a grain mixture I got from Trader Joe's, and I'll show you that in a minute. So these patties here are all done. I'm pulling them off and putting them on a plate. And then I'm going to set them to the side. Make sure you put foil over them to keep them warm while you finish up cooking the rest of your hamburger, or not hamburgers, but turkey burgers and chicken burgers. Also, just as a good reminder, anytime you're cooking with any meat, it's always handy to have a thermometer. I didn't show myself doing this, and I should have probably filmed that, but I did check the temperature of each of these just to ensure they're completely done. So always make sure if you have, you know, meat thermometer, you take a measure of the temperature and make sure everything's getting cooked for you. So in that pot, like I said, I had the chicken broth. I added some of the chicken bouillon as well as some all-purpose seasoning. And then I did some onion powder and garlic powder, which I put in almost everything I cook. So this is a Harvest Grains blend. We really enjoyed this. I needed, I wish I could go to Trader Joe's again. We don't have a Trader Joe's locally. And hopefully sometime, you know, at some point I can get to go there again. But it is like one of my most favorite stores. So, and by the way, if you love Trader Joe's too, let me know what your favorite products are down in the comments below, because I'd love to see what all y'all like at Trader Joe's as well. So while I'm finishing up these burgers, I just wanted to tell you that, like, I love cookbooks. I was so excited about this collab. I have probably about 200, maybe a little over 200 cookbooks. I collect them, but I'm horrible about using them to cook with. I tend to get my recipes, you know, online. So this was a great way to kind of get me into that thing of, okay, let's look at our cookbooks. Let's decide to make something that, you know, is actually from a recipe book and get started on that, because I love cookbooks. They're just, I love to read through them, and, you know, especially if they have stories in them and things like that. So, and so here's that grain mixture again. It's fully cooked. I'm just kind of making sure all the liquid had evaporated out of it. We're going to set that to the side while we finish getting everything else done, and we're going to be pulling out those veggies here in just a moment too. This was such an amazing dinner. I really, like, it was just so healthy. It didn't feel, you know, heavy. And like I said, after, you know, an indulgent, you know, holiday season, this is very, very refreshing change of pace. So this was really, really good. I will definitely be making those turkey burgers and chicken burgers again. We liked them both, so we'll do them both again. It's so easy to do them all. And then we've got a few extra cooked up for the rest of the week, and it just makes a great healthy meal. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you like seeing things like this, like, you know, a compilation of our favorites, let me know. I've thought about trying to do it regularly, like maybe every few months. So let me know if you like that, and I'll definitely incorporate that into my schedule. But I hope y'all have a blessed day wherever you are, and I'll see you in the next one.